Well, I want to welcome everyone here today. It's a special Sunday out here at Sunburst Sanctuary. We had a Kriya meditation teaching retreat this weekend. And so there were a number of folks who joined us and learned the practice of Kriya Yoga meditation. So in a way, I always think of these Sunday services after Kriya Yoga initiation, which just happened yesterday morning at exactly the same time. It's kind of like a little reception that we have after that event. And it's just such a special time in each person's life when they get the opportunity to learn a meditation technique and to commit themselves to trying it out for a while. But it's also really inspiring and valuable to all of the people who have already received Kriya Yoga initiation so many times over the years. It's like a renewing of all of our vows and our commitment to practicing and making the best effort that we can to have soul awakening. I had something planned that I was going to do when I started the service this morning. But while the musicians were singing, I thought about something else. And the topic today is perseverance, embodying the practice of virtue. And as I was listening to the musicians, I was thinking about the commitment that they make every week to get together and prepare songs that will help inspire everyone here and open our hearts to a place of devotion so that we can dive deep together. And how that's perseverance. It's like the living example of perseverance. And it happens every single week here at Sunburst. And it's the same people every week because they're the ones who know how to play the instruments. And so they have to really be committed to that. I don't want to speak for them, but there may be weeks when they're like, oh boy, I really don't want to practice tonight. I had a really hard day, but I need to get over there and put the time in with my other fellow musicians so that we can do the best that we can on Sundays, which they always do. And then I remembered years ago I was reading this book, and there was a quote in it, and I'm probably not going to get this exact, but the quote was, it was kind of an old-timey quote, but it was, I would not give a fig for simplicity on the near side of complexity, but I would give my life for simplicity on the far side of complexity. And I read it, and it stirred something inside of me, but I could not get my mind around what it really meant. I just knew that it was something important, and it just stirred something inside of me. And then I was having dinner with my friend, Ron Cologne. Some of you might know Ron. Really, really good brother. And he had also been reading that book. And so I mentioned to him that quote. And he goes, I love that quote. I said, well, what does it mean? So he said, well, to me, when I think of it, an example of it is how when somebody sets out to learn how to play an instrument, and let's say a guitar, and they're just, struggling with something that's very simple once you once you are able to achieve it. But until then, it's really a struggle. And there's not too much that comes out of it that sounds that harmonious. And so simplicity on the near side of complexity is like that. It's like learning something new that you haven't mastered at all. And that's why the quote says, I really wouldn't give anything for that. But once someone has mastered this instrument, and they're on the far side of complexity, because it's a complex process that they're going through, then that kind of simplicity, he is saying, I would give my life for that. So I want to just honor the musicians, because each one of you, at some point in your lives, went through that process. You had to have. And I remember an old friend of ours, Valerie King, who played music here in the temple for many, many years with us. I remember her telling me that that when she was learning how to play the guitar, that she would she'd be sitting on her bed just trying and trying and trying, and then she would just take it and throw it. So that's kind of the image I have when I think about it. But that's perseverance, because she picked it back up. And that's what perseverance is. We just had our Kriya initiation, and there was a lot of information that was given out this weekend on the different classes. And just even the Kriya technique itself, when you first learn it, it can be pretty technical. There's kind of a lot of moving parts. And I would just say that it's not unlike this analogy of learning how to play an instrument. And I want to encourage everyone who has recently received Kriya initiation to just go slow and give yourselves lots of love and support. Because once you get past the part where you have to be thinking about what you're doing all the time, and you get into a rhythm, then you can really start to feel the benefits of how that technique works. And you start to hear the music, if you will, of that practice and what it can bring to you. So now I'm going to start where I was going to start. And I want to read about perseverance from words from our founder, Norman Paulsen. And just for context, I wanted to mention that perseverance is one of 12 foundational virtues that we have here at Sunburst. And in the early days of Sunburst, Norm was really guided, inspired, and worked with some of the other members of Sunburst at that time to really zero in on what these different virtues were. And I think that this is unique to Sunburst, although I don't know that I've lived here a long time, so I don't know everything that's going on everywhere in the world. But at Sunburst, each virtue is also connected and correlates with one of the astrological signs. So this may be just an original teaching here at Sunburst. I'm not 100% sure. You can tell me after service if I got that wrong. And so perseverance is the virtue of Cancer. We're in the sign of Cancer right now. And I happen to be a Cancer. And so over the years, I've had lots of opportunities to learn how to better practice perseverance. And that means I haven't always been perfect at it. So Norm says about perseverance, and I know that the initiates heard this at least once or twice this weekend already. My teacher, Paramahansa Yogananda, once said to me, "Big boy, promise me that no matter how many times you fall, you will always get up and try again. From this you will develop divine willpower and attain the goal in this lifetime." I replied, "Yes, sir, I promise you that I will." Now, Norm was maybe 18 or 19 or 20 years old at this time when this was happening. The will to never give up seeking spirit, no matter how difficult the path, must be your soulful resolve in this life. One by one, spirit reduces all obstacles to nothingness if you persist. The day comes when in your presence, when in your persistence and spirit reach a point where you merge. Spirit will come when you least expect it and reveal to you the light of the great central sun, shining above the brightness of our noonday sun. Once starting on the pathway of virtue and meditation, the sincere spiritual aspirant vows never to give up. Perseverance upon the eightfold path will gain you the thresholds of virtue. Meditation daily will give you the strength to persevere onward, up those steps toward liberation. You will see the great spiritual sun shining eternally now, and the blue skies and multicolored clouds will prevail on your horizons. Again and again, great souls return to perfect the last vestiges of virtue. The gateway of perseverance must be entered by the spiritual athlete, as must all of the 12 gateways. Once accomplishing this great truth, one gains victory over the adversary, the false ego. Remember, regular meditations twice a day will give you the strength and determination to walk the pathways of virtue. But in that reading, Norm mentions what he refers to as the great spiritual sun, or the great central sun. In later years, he started referring to this inner orb of light as the body of Christ, in that the consciousness, the Christ consciousness which permeates all of creation, is contained within that sphere of light and is projected out into creation. We are projected out of that divine light, and we will find our home there again one day. So when I was reading that, and I was listening to Norm, or hearing Norm, or remembering Norm talking about this inner sun, it just reminded me of how much he did talk about this relationship that he had with this divine inner being of light. When he was just almost 23 years old, very young, he had a dynamic experience of cosmic consciousness. It was the seminal experience of his life. And then for the rest of his life, he tried to figure out how to talk about it and let other people know just how magnificent this experience was, and what awaits and what is in store for each of us as we walk the spiritual path. But he was, that was in 1952. And he had visions, or caught glimpses in some of his visions, indicating to him that he would someday form a spiritual community in the Santa Barbara area. And Yogananda had confirmed this to him as well and encouraged him to do that. But Norm, in 1952, there were really no prospects on the horizon for Norm to form a community. And he was working the trades, which if you've worked the trades, is good, honest work, but the energy there is not really that supportive of spirituality. And people weren't really interested in Norm talking about his experiences with Yogananda or the direct experiences he had had with spirit. And they just say, oh, that's still crazy old Norm talking about the yogis. They had no appreciation whatsoever what Norm had gone through and what he was going through. He felt very, very alone at this point in his life. So he had to wait really until 1969 until people showed up who were interested. So that was 17 years, I guess, if I'm doing the math right. Almost 20 years. But during that period of time, he kept his daily practice of meditation going. And whatever else he did, I don't really know because I wasn't there with him, but this great experience that he had, it never went away inside of him. And what he had to offer continued to be there, ready for whenever anybody was interested. So he tells the story, or he told the story years ago about how I think in 1968, he was working on a job somewhere in the Santa Barbara area, and he was laying block. He was a block mason. And at lunchtime, he kind of went around the corner away from everybody after he'd eaten his lunch, and he was doing some push-ups. Like laying block wasn't enough. So he thought he'd do some push-ups at lunchtime. And if you knew Norm, you'd go, yeah, that makes sense. And he kind of caught somebody peeking around the corner looking at him. And then when this person saw that he had kind of been spotted, he came forth and he introduced himself. And his name was Rick Ewell. And Rick was the first brother who came who was interested in what Norm was doing, more than just that he did push-ups. He was interested in the spiritual aspect as well. But Rick said to Norm, he said, I do push-ups too. So, and again, if you knew Rick, that's just perfect. Yeah, he was kind of like a little knockoff of Norm. He was like they were both Aquarians and they were both so sincere, just so sincere and just so giving. You know, the virtue of Aquarius is charity, and they both just were so charitable with their energy. So then, so that he met Rick, and then shortly after that, sometime within the next year or so, some other younger people showed up, and they were interested in learning about meditation, and especially when they found out that Norm had been a disciple of Yogananda. Some of them were familiar with Yogananda, and to know somebody who was a direct disciple of Yogananda was pretty exciting. And a lot happened between then and now. There's been a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of really good memories. But I was thinking about Rick, and I was remembering that when Norm passed away, and we had a big celebration of life. We had a big tent out in the field out here, and different people got up and spoke about Norm. And it was a beautiful celebration and a beautiful day. And I know that Rick talked, and I think he was the first person who got up and talked, which would really make sense because he was the first guy who showed up back there in 1968. And what I remember about what Rick said was he just talked about how in the beginning, before Sunburst had anything at all, they didn't have any property or anything, that Norm would just sit around with him and some of the other young people, and he would just talk about the things that they could do. And he was just planting these images into the future. And he talked about, wouldn't it be great if we had some property? And wouldn't it be great if we could grow our own food? And wouldn't it be great if we opened some stores that could service good, healthy food to the community of Santa Barbara? And wouldn't it be great if we had a wholesale warehouse and we could ship food to other parts of the country? Wouldn't it be great if we had semi-trucks that could deliver the food? I mean, Rick, this is what Rick was saying, that Norm was just, and this is what Norm did, and this is what Norm taught while he was here, is that we have the ability to project images into what he called the field of power, the fertile field of energy that is around us all the time and within us. And we can project these images and we can manifest whatever beautiful future we decide that we want to do. So I remembered that, and I just wanted to share it because it was so right on. Rick, if anybody knew about it, it would have been Rick. He was there, and that's what Norm was doing. And then he did that his whole life. Even after that, he loved to see things happen. He'd love to see us open a new store or develop a new piece of property and set up a field to grow food, whatever it might be. All of the beautiful things. And then he became a really good author, which I think that, I just kind of think that people who probably knew Norm when he was young, when he was laying block, and working the trades, nobody probably would have seen that coming, that Norm was going to be such a great author and write these beautiful words that would inspire generations of people, and they will. They continue to inspire us. So I just wanted to share that with everyone today, and how Norm's connection to people was very personal, very personal. He when you were one-on-one with Norm, it was like you were the only person on earth. And his connection with divine spirit and this blazing, brilliant orb of light that he encountered when he had his cosmic conscious experience, and which accompanied him for the rest of his life. He had a very personal experience with that light too. It's not just a technical approach to divine spirit. Spirit loves us. And if you're familiar with the near-death experience phenomenon, there's thousands of people who have been brought back from the brink of death or from death by modern medicine, and they all say the same thing. They are confronted ultimately at some point during their experience by a being of light. And this being, which they can't ever, most of the times they can't quite make out who it is. They're shining so bright, like brighter than the noonday sun, as Norm mentioned. But this being of light knows them intimately, knows every single thing about them that they have ever done. And in spite of that, loves them unconditionally and completely. And this this is what we have to look forward to. And I can say that while Norm was here in the physical, that's how he was with us. I know I'll say for myself, he loved me unconditionally, and he knew some of the things that I had done that weren't that great. But he supported me and loved me. And I know that I speak for everybody in this room who knew him. And that's the example that we have that we can all live by. We can be, if we want to be, we can make the choice to be like that being of light that we meet in the tunnel, and be loving and forgiving and accepting and just supportive all the time of each other. And especially when we're down, especially when we've fallen, especially when we need to stand back up again, which is what perseverance is really all about. That's when we need it the most. Perseverance. In the Sunburst virtues, every virtue has an opposite. Like, for instance, the virtue of faith, the opposite is doubt. The virtue of honesty, the opposite is dishonesty. Well, the virtue of, with perseverance being the virtue, the opposite was always surrender. And I know that there's been some discussion about, I really wonder if surrender is a great one to have there, because surrender seems almost like a virtue within itself. And so it made, I was thinking about how in this teaching of the virtues, and if you're kind of involved in it for many, many years, like some of us here have been, you start to recognize, you really start to recognize the traits of the different virtues in the people who are born in these different birth signs. It's really uncanny. And but one of the things is that a lot of times, if you can reach across the zodiac to the opposite sign across the zodiac as a balancing of your virtue, whatever it is. So, being a Cancer, if I reach across the zodiac, I go to Capricorn. And the virtue of Capricorn is temperance. And so I've thought about this before, how important it is, and this is really a good one for me, because I can be just trying to beat my way through a wall, by persevering too hard. But if I stop and I reflect on temperance, I realize, hey, I might need to temper this and step back. And if I just step back, many times I'll see there's a doorway right next door. I can just walk through. And so there's a certain surrender that goes with that. You have to give up sometimes trying so hard. And just when we're trying so hard, a lot of times we tighten up and we sort of miss the point. And that's, I think Jake mentioned that in the Kriya yesterday. It's like, with meditation, it's you don't want to just hammer yourself with that technique over and over and over and just, work yourself into a frenzy with it. You want to go slow, and you want to give yourself space, and you want to relax. And that takes some surrender sometimes to be able to do that. Let's go into 15 minutes of quiet meditation together. And this is a good time to practice whatever technique of meditation you may have learned. And I know there's a number of us in the room that have Kriya Yoga to practice. If you're not familiar with meditation, you can just kind of sit with your back straight and your chin level with the floor, and your your shoulders relax. You don't want any tension in your body. You just want to relax. And then hold your attention here at the point between the eyebrows. In from here is the point that we refer to as the Christ center. It has many names, but it's also the third eye. And so if we hold our attention here while we're meditating, and then just follow our breath, if we don't have any technique to do, that's a good beginning place to start. I have a few closing thoughts I'd like to share. The Sunburst path, how it's been laid out, basically by our brother Norm many, many years ago, and then continuing to be fine-tuned and improved upon as we've gone along, is pretty simple. And in fact, it might be so simple that it seems like it's, well, how can that be enough? But basically what Norm was saying is, if we meditate daily, twice daily preferably, and we use the Eightfold Path of Conscious Living and the 12 virtues and embracing those virtues as a guide in our life, that is the formula to soul awakening. That we don't really need anything more than that. And that doesn't mean that there aren't other great things that can be incorporated. And every path is a little bit different. But at Sunburst, that's the philosophy. And maybe it's because Norm, in this incarnation, was such a seemingly simple man himself. He didn't make things complicated. And so it's a plan that we can follow. There's an old saying, plan your work and work your plan. And following the plan of walking the Eightfold Path of Conscious Living and embracing the virtues and trying our best daily to put them on and express them, and doing our meditations. That's the plan, and that plan will lead us to soul awakening. And to close, I just wanted to share a couple of things that Norm said to me about that. He wasn't talking necessarily about perseverance, but they were really about perseverance. And the first one is obviously not his original quote. But when he said this to me, I was very young. I was probably 21 years old. It kind of went into my body with a jolt. And he just said, a man doesn't put his hand on the plow unless he intends to finish the field. And then a few years later, maybe a dozen years later, he said, David, no matter how many times your garden fills up with weeds, just keep planting positive images, and eventually the weeds will be crowded out. Please join me in a closing prayer. Divine Spirit, our Mother and our Father, we are so grateful to have this opportunity to sit together, brothers and sisters, united in our desire to wake up and to know you fully, which is our birthright and which is intended to be. Amen.
We're free to try again. This time we're gonna win. The light that shone within is shining here again. Let's try that all together. We're free to try again. This time we're gonna win. shone within is shining here again. Okay, the next verse goes, we're free to fly again on wings that unfold within. Our spirits will ride the wind. God's love will bind us again. We're free to fly again on wings that unfold within. Our spirits will ride the wind. God's love will bind us again. So let's try that again. We're free to try again. This time we're gonna win. The light that shone within is shining here again. We're free to fly again on wings that unfold within. Our spirits will ride the wind. God's love will bind us again. And we've got a garden right here and now. The forge and the plow are our virtues. And we've got a shepherd who loves his flock, who loves to walk and talk in the valley of light. And we got each other, brothers and sisters, so close to the turn of the light. And we got forever and a day to laugh and play and to sing God's praise. To try again. This time we're gonna win. The light that shone within is shining here again. We're free to fly again on wings that unfold within. Our spirits will ride the wind. God's love will bind us again. And we got each other, brothers and sisters, so close to the mother of return. God forever and a day to laugh and play and to sing through